Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Learn With Me. I'm Deborah Hanson, and today we're going to be looking at AP Psychology 5.4, selection of categories of psychological disorders. So there are 10 CED questions for this section of Unit 5. This is number 9. So on these slides, you're going to see the key terms for the entire section of 5.4. So all 9 CED questions in this one. And there's a separate video where you can get the definitions and real life examples so that you can learn them for the exam. My philosophy is the key to the 5 are really the key terms. You have to know them. You have to be able to apply them. You have to be able to define them. You have to be able to use them and see them through the MCQs and FRQs. So super important to learn your key terms in AP Psychology. But before we dive into the actual question, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel, hit that like button, sent emails. It's really great to hear from all of you. And, sometimes I really feel like the videos are a little bit long and maybe I'm telling you guys too much information, but from the emails, it sounds like that's what you guys are looking for, especially those of you who are self-studying. So if you do like the content, please hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, leave me some comments. Apparently that all helps. So I really appreciate that. So in this video, we're going to look at CED question number 9, which is describe the symptoms and possible causes of selected feeding and eating disorders. So before we look at the overview, also, if you are looking for the whole slideshow, because I do a lot of talking in the videos and I give you a lot of information, I do have a link below to the full slideshow, all the notes, the scripts that I use, everything that you need to be able to study for the test. That link is below to my teacher pay teacher store. Okay, so let's get started with the overview of feeding and eating disorders. The definition basically of this is disorders characterized by disturbances in eating behaviors that negatively impact physical health or psychological function. So for AP Psychology, we just need to know 2 disorders. We need to know anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. We're going to break those down with all of the essential knowledge you need to know for the exam. But first, let's take a closer look at anorexia nervosa, a serious and potentially life-threatening eating disorder. It involves an intense fear of gaining weight and a distorted perception of one's body. It often leads to dangerous food restriction and severe weight loss. This disorder affects both physical and mental health and can have long-term consequences if left untreated. So for example, let's look at the definition of that first. Anorexia nervosa is characterized by a person's refusal to maintain a healthy body weight due to a deep fear of becoming fat, even when they're significantly underweight. People with this disorder often have this distorted body image where they see themselves as overweight no matter how thin they are. So let's break it down into the 3 categories for symptoms. We'll talk about physical, behavioral, and cognitive. We'll start with physical symptoms. That would be extreme weight loss. That's the obvious sign. Many individuals also experience brittle hair, brittle nails, dry skin, irregular heartbeats, low blood pressure because of the lack of nutrients that they are getting. In women, menstrual cycles will often stop. So those would be the physical symptoms. The behavioral symptoms include strict dieting or food restriction, even when you're underweight. Individuals may exercise excessively, count calories obsessively, avoid eating in front of others. There's often a preoccupation with food, dieting, and weight, even though they avoid eating. And lastly, the cognitive symptoms. The person may have distorted body image, constantly believing they're overweight when they are clearly underweight. And this is not just so low self-esteem, it's deeply ingrained and irrational behavior about one's body. So what could the possible causes be for this? Well, like most psychological disorders, there just isn't just one cause for anorexia. It usually results from a combination of biological, social, and cognitive factors. First, the biological. Some individuals may have a genetic predisposition or neurotransmitter imbalance that affects appetite or anxiety. Studies have shown that people with anorexia may have altered levels of serotonin, a chemical that's involved in mood and eating behavior. Next, social culture. There's often intense pressure, especially in Western societies, to conform to unrealistic beauty standards that idolize thinness. Social media, magazines, entertainment, they often reinforce the idea that being thin equals being more successful or more attractive. And lastly, cognitive. Many individuals with anorexia are perfectionists. They may also have obsessive thoughts about weight, food, and control, using restriction as a way to feel in control when other parts of their life may seem chaotic. Anorexia nervosa is more than just the desire to be thin. It's a serious mental health disorder with complex causes and dangerous consequences. The good news is that early intervention, therapy, and medical support can really make a huge difference in recovery. It's essential to approach this topic with compassion and understanding because those who are affected often struggle in silence. Now let's talk about bulimia nervosa, another serious eating disorder that's often misunderstood. Unlike anorexia, bulimia is marked by a cycle of binge eating followed by compensatory behaviors like vomiting or excessive exercise. People with bulimia may maintain a normal weight, which can make the disorder very difficult to detect, but the effects can be equally as dangerous. So here's the definition. Bulimia nervosa involves episodes of eating large amounts of food in a short period of time called binges, followed by behaviors meant to undo the eating, like purging, using laxative, or overexercising. These cycles are driven by an intense fear of weight gain and a preoccupation with body image. Let's look at the symptoms. So we're going to look at them across the board like we did with anorexia, physical, behavior, and cognitive. Let's start with the physical. So the physical symptoms include fluctuations in weight, though many individuals maintain a weight within the normal range. Bulimia can cause electrolyte imbalances, which are dangerous and can affect the heart. You may also see dental erosion from frequent vomiting and gastrointestinal problems like acid reflux or stomach pain. In the behavioral symptoms, binge eating involves consuming large quantities of food quickly, often in secret and beyond the point of fullness. Purging behaviors follow the binge and can include self-induced vomiting, use of laxatives, or compulsive exercise to try to prevent the weight gain that would have happened because of all of the food they ate. So the key point is these behaviors are often hidden due to the feelings of shame, guilt, or embarrassment. Now let's look at cognitive symptoms. There's usually an intense preoccupation with shape and weight. After a binge episode, the individual may experience overwhelming guilt or self-disgust, reinforcing the cycle of purging. Some of the possible causes. Well, like we said, right? Most psychological disorders have multiple contributing factors: biological, social, cognitive. Let's start with biological. Imbalances in neurotransmitters like serotonin can affect appetite, mood, and impulse control. These chemical irregularities may make it harder for individuals to regulate their eating behaviors or their emotional responses. The next one is social cultural factors. Societal pressure to be thin combined with the glorification of dieting can push individuals towards unhealthy eating habits. So media and social comparisons often feed that fear of gaining weight. And lastly, cognitive behavioral factors. People with bulimia often struggle with impulse control and may use food as a way to cope with emotional stress or trauma. Binging provides temporary relief, but it's quickly followed by guilt, leading to purging, a cycle that becomes very hard to break. So bulimia nervosa is not just about overeating, it's about emotional regulation, body image, and a powerful cycle of guilt and control. While it can be difficult to detect, especially when individuals appear healthy on the outside, the physical and emotional effects can be severe. So with treatment like cognitive behavioral therapy and nutritional counseling, recovery is definitely possible. So on the side, I just made you a little chart to compare the two eating disorders, anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa, with the core behaviors, weight status, physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, just a little in a nutshell for you. So when we look at feeding and eating disorders like anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating disorders, it's important to understand that they don't have just one cause. Instead, these conditions are the result of a complex mix of biological, psychological, and social, as well as behavioral factors that influence how a person thinks, feels, and behaves about food and body image. Let's start with the biological causes. So let's really just start with biology, really. Some people may have a genetic predisposition that makes them more vulnerable to developing obsessive or compulsive behaviors, which can show up in disordered eating patterns. So there's also evidence of neurotransmitter imbalances, such as low serotonin, a chemical in the brain that helps regulate mood and appetite. These biological factors can make it harder for individuals to manage stress, anxiety, and impulses related to food. The next one we're going to look at is psychological causes. So psychological factors play a huge role in this. People with eating disorders often experience cognitive distortions. For example, the belief that I'm only worthy if I'm thin. They may also struggle with perfectionism, constantly holding themselves to impossible standards, or they may be dealing with low self-esteem, feeling like they're not good enough unless they look a certain way. These thought patterns can fuel harmful behaviors like restricting food or purging. Next, we're going to look at social and cultural causes. We also can't ignore the influence of society and culture, the pressure to achieve an ideal body, that perfect body image, often promoted by social media, fashion, entertainment industries. This can lead individuals to internalize unrealistic beauty standards. And when thinness is seen as a symbol of success or self-worth, it can increase the risk of disordered eating, especially in young people who are much more vulnerable to these external influences. Lastly, we're going to look at behavioral causes. So disordered eating patterns can become reinforced over time. So for instance, if avoiding food or purging reduces anxiety about weight, the brain may learn to repeat that behavior as a coping mechanism. Some individuals also use eating or the control of it as a way to manage emotions, especially when they feel out of control in other areas of their life. So in this case, food becomes a tool for emotional regulation, even if it's harmful in the long term. So as we can see, feeding and eating disorders are not just about food. They're deeply connected to how the brain works, how people feel about themselves, and how society influences their self-image. So recognizing the multiple causes helps us to better understand the disorder and therefore provide more effective treatment and support for people who are struggling with this. Okay, so what are the key takeaways from this section of 5.4, and what do you need to know for the exam? You need to understand the symptoms and differences between anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. You need to be able to connect biological, psychological, and social causes to these disorders, and you need to be able to use real-life examples to illustrate symptoms and behaviors. Okay, so that's all the essential knowledge you need to know to be able to answer CED question number 9 for 5.4, and the question was describe the symptoms and possible causes of selected feeding and eating disorders. So if you found the information helpful, please hit that like and subscribe button for me. Leave me some comments if you have any questions, or I've been getting emails from all over the world, which has absolutely been fantastic. I am absolutely loving this. And so yeah, hopefully you found this helpful. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.